Everyone, welcome back to the workshop. And you know how that saying is, I'm going to hold on to that scrap piece of wood because you never know when it's going to be useful. Well, it rarely are. So I am going to thin out my pile and we're going to work on a small project. We're going to be using the Genmitsu 4040 Pro Max. So we're going to set up a small project, use some scraps. I'm going to show you how this small CNC could be useful for you in making some custom items for a craft fair. So if that sounds interesting to you, you want to check it out, stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into it. Let's start by taking a look at what we're going to be designing. And so I've got the kind of finished 3D view here, and it's a simple spoon rest. We've got a lower dish out in there, and then just a channel for the handle here. And then we've got a profile cut with rounded corners. So that's what our end goal is going to be. Now let's look at the overall setup process. All right, so with VCarve Pro, we want to set up our job. And first off, we got to give it our material dimensions. And so I wanted to limit this to what was the smallest piece we could work with. And what I ended up coming up with about was 9 3/4 inches by about 4.5. And then a thickness of about 3/4 inch. That would allow you to also, if you needed to batch out for some fresh wood, you can often get 4-sided finished 3/4 inch hardwood, even at your big box stores. So that's what we're basing it off of. I'm going to zero off the surface. It might actually be worthwhile to do this off the machine bed. That way, if you had slightly varying thicknesses by, maybe it's off by 1/10 or so, it would still cut fine and get through all the way, but just kind of kiss the spoil board. But we'll go with material surface, and then we're going to have our origin off the lower left corner. So that's where we have here. If we're doing more of placing an engrave in an existing item, you might want to go off the center, find the center of your object, and then zero off of there. But in this case, since we're going off of random material, we just want it off of that lower corner. So when we have all that, we now have our working area, and I've already gone ahead and drawn in the shapes. So really what this would be 2 pockets as well as a profile. So we're going to start with this one up here. This is a square pocket. I'm using the 1/2 inch bowl bit from Jenny. So we've got the bit here. And if we go in and look at our settings, running it at 100 to 110 inches per minute, just kind of feeling it out and only doing a pass depth of 0.1 inches. Like I say, first time using this bit on this machine, the Genmitsu 4040. I'm pretty sure it'll do this. This might be a little conservative. And then feed rate 110, plunge rate 60, and then we will ramp those as well. The reason I have this box extending beyond these lines is that bit is radiused. And so when it comes to a corner, it's not going to let that bit go further than this line, which would leave a radius in this corner. We don't want that right here. So I'm pushing this out so that the bit comes out and back down so that we don't have like a weird little lip in here. So have it extending outside of both lines. That's fine. So with this profile cut, that's square, we are going to have it cut down 0.2 inches. This is just kind of rest for the handle. We are going to do a conventional raster cut that's going to go with the grain side to side. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to ramp those moves. So that'll bring that bit in nice and slowly. You don't want to like drill it down. They're not really made for drilling as they are for cutting. So ramping it in is a little bit easier on that bit and your spindle. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the next pocket. That's going to be this one. Now I've put this in at about 4.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches wide. Did that to try to cover the bases of various spatulas and spoons and things. And we're going to make this one a little bit deeper. It's going to be the same thing, but I did radius those edges. This is going to be the finished edge. So I want that bowl bit just to kind of roll right around that radius edge. It's going to give it a nice soft look and nice clean lines as well. So this one we're going 0.45 inches in. So we're going to go about 1/4 inch lower than our other pocket for the shoulder or for the handle. And then kind of the same settings. We are going at 100 to 110 inches per minute, 0.1 pass depth, and we're going to plunge it in at 60. Again, we're using a conventional cut with the grain. and we're going to ramp that in. So once those two are done, and the reason I'm using the bowl bit for both of them is it gives it nice radius to bottom, and we can combine those two. So there's not an extra bit change. There's not an extra job. All right, so let's look at our final profile cut here. We've got that selected here. This is this outer box, and that is about 8 1/4 by 3 3/4 inches in size. We've got the radiused corners to give it a nice soft edge. And let's take a look at the settings. I am going to be cutting the full depth 3/4 inch thick material. We're going to be using the 1/4 bit Downtown Jenny. This one I have slowed down a little bit from stock settings. Again, we're only doing a pass depth of 0.1 inches. I'm working my way up with this frame and spindle or trim router really. And so we're going to go 0.1 inches for each pass. We're going to go at 70 inches per minute. And a plunge rate of 35. Again, we will ramp those in, but we are going to use a conventional cut around the outside, and we are going to do a separate last path. So I have that set at 15 hundredths, and that will do our first cuts just that much out, and then on the last pass, it will bring it in that allowance, do a full depth cut so that you don't get the step down lines as you might with all of those passes going around and going down 0.1 inch. So that last cut should be a nice cleanup pass. Again, we are going to ramp the tools in. So we're going to come in at about 1/2 inch. It's going to just ease down at an angle rather than driving straight down in. All right, so we see all of our tool paths in here. We've reset the view. So we're going to preview all tool paths. You'll see it's going to pocket the one, pocket the other, and do the profile. We will have to do that bit change in between. So I'm going to go ahead and save this out. It's going to save as 2 files. So let's hop over to the CNC and get that done. All right, so I am going to start with this piece of cherry wood. I trimmed it down so it's a little more manageable on here. And I'm going to put some double-sided tape on here and stick it down to the board. So this is just some light-duty double-sided tape. I'm using this instead of the CA and glue tape method, but we're just going to line it up with the holes, make sure it's straight. Then we're going to let the machine home itself, and then we will set the origin in the corner, and then I'm going to swap out that 1/4 inch bit for the bowl cut bit you see that we've got there. And we'll need to get that tightened in and then zero. I'm just going to use the paper method. So the bowl bit is cutting through this cherry very nicely. And I think in this one we were doing 100 inches per minute, and of course that 1/10 of an inch step down. So it'll go through and do the pocket for the handle, and then we're doing the main pocket for the spoon here. And we're doing it without the dust collection in. You see that it is getting very messy, but I wanted to kind of see the bit in action when I ran it this first time. All right, so we got the pocketing passes done, and I left the dust shoe off to be able to show the bit in action. And of course, this is the mess it made, which goes to show you dust collection is very important on these, because now I do need to go in and make sure we clean the rails and the screws, because over time that will clog them up and it'll not work very well. But and also you'll see that this is a lot of fine chips. There's maybe a little dust in there. So I definitely feel like my speeds are a bit conservative. And can ramp those up a bit. You definitely want to be finding more chips than dust, but you're also kind of listening and watching for any chatter. Make sure you're not overstressing the frame or the spindle and such. So that took 16 minutes. I'm going to swap out bits. I'm going to put in the 1/4 inch down cut, and we'll get the profile done and then pop it out, see how it looks. So I made quick work of the cleanup using the shop vac, and dropped that 1/4 inch Downtown Jenny in there and threw the dust shoe on this time. And as you can see, it is picking up a lot of the dust, just a few little strays there. So if you are looking at one of these CNCs, definitely check out the dust boot options as well. All right, so I've got it popped out of the CNC, and overall it's looking pretty good. Fairly smooth finish along the edges. Just a couple areas here where I had to pop through that onion skin. Again, if you zero off of the machine bed, it will go all the way through, just kind of kiss your spoil board and make those profile cuts a little bit better. So it did have a little bit of a rust spot here, and this is just the nature of this cherry wood. Sometimes you get these weird spots, and so I should be able to kind of sand that smooth a little bit. And I don't know if it's going to show up on camera here, but you get in some woods, you'll get a little bit of a look of lines from it doing that raster. And that's one of the reasons I do it in the side to side. You could, do a spiral out, but then you're going to have those lines going in both directions. If you have them going with the grain, they're going to be less visible, and then they're easy. This will sand out really quick. So let me get this sanded up. I'm probably going to put a little round over with the trim router on here, and we'll see how it sands up. So I'm using a random orbit sander with some 220 grit sandpaper on there. I'm just going to get all the surfaces as best I can, get it nice and smooth, kind of soften in those edges as well, just checking for any imperfections. And then using the trim router with an 1/8 inch round over bit just to soften that bottom lip as well. And a little hand sanding just to finish it off and clean up that inside pocket as well. So that cleans it up pretty nice. It would be ready for finish if you want to leave it plain, but we're going to dress it up. Now you could go ahead and use a V-bit and engrave something on here with the CNC, but we've got lasers as well. So we're going to go ahead and put something up here with the laser, maybe put a maker mark on the back. Then we'll put some finish on. So I'm using the Xtool F1 Ultra for this. It does have a 20-watt blue diode as well as its 20-watt fiber laser. I'm going to use the blue diode here, and it is really handy to be able to frame this up and get a good location on custom items like this. So we'll running this at about 300 millimeters a second, 95% power, and it's taking about a minute and a half to finish that. These are all sanded up, threw them into the laser. The Xtool F1 Ultra made quick work out of this, engraving each one of these in about a minute and a half. So, of course, some fun sayings here. Many have eaten, few have died. Then, of course, you know, grandma's kitchen made with love. And then life is short, lick the spoon. So, you know, that's part of the tricky part sometimes is coming up with what to put on these for engravings. If you're taking them to a craft show, of course, you're going to want them to be somewhat generic and not necessarily personalized, but you can also offer personalization either on your CNC machine or with a laser. And that's where you can really maximize some profits, putting initials or names, whatever you want with these, using a V-bit engraving or the laser. Great way to upsell these and make a bigger profit. The last thing I need to do is get some finish on these. Now, since these will be interacting with utensils that had to have food on them, I'm going to be just using some mineral oil, and that will provide some protection without being anything that's going to be harmful to be in contact with food. Now, that is something that would probably need to be reapplied every so often, much like a cutting board, but it will give a nice finish and leave these food safe. So let's get that applied, let them cure, and look at the finished product. So as I said, I'm just going to go ahead and use a typical food grade mineral oil. You can find this at most big box stores or online. And we want to apply a healthy amount. I'm just kind of using a cotton cloth to rub it in, and then I'll reapply a few times, making sure it soaks in nice and deep. Setting on some dowels there just to let it dry. Once those did dry, went ahead and added some of these little sticky feet on the bottom just to add some anti-slip skids to them. And here you see using a few different styles of spoons. You can see why I have that kind of larger spot. You can put these more square spoons in there, right side up or upside down, typical round spoons. We got some silicone based spoons and then even a spatula. And here we have 3 different spoon rests cut from some offcuts. I did go ahead and put the anti-slip little rubber feet on the bottom of some of these. Those are definitely an inexpensive add-on. You could, of course, leave it plain as well, but just make sure you let the oil dry before you go ahead and stick those on, and they'll work better. So again, we only used 2 bits on here. We had the Downtown Jenny and the 1/2-inch bowl cut Jenny, both from Cadence Manufacturing. I definitely love these bits. Cody, who manufactures these here in the US, is really supportive of the maker community. He made a lot of these bits for machines like this in mind. I'll have a link down below to these bits if you're interested. It's not an affiliate link, just a sales pitch on something I appreciate and a guy who's doing a lot for the maker community. So go ahead and support Cody, grab you some bits. So this project was done on the Genmitsu 4040 Pro Max, as well as the engravings done on the Xtool F1 Ultra. You could definitely do this with just about any diode laser out there. The Ultra is just nice that it can get it done quickly. And so if you're interested in either of these 2 machines, I will have links down below for them for you to check out. I appreciate you using those links anytime you can. They do tell the companies that you appreciate my content, and hopefully that helps me continue working with them, as well as occasionally I'll get a buck or 2 as a commission on those sales, but as always, just trying to give you some good information on the equipment I'm using. So I hope this was helpful for you, and you can go ahead and design some of these yourself. Otherwise, I will have links to these files down below. That's to my Etsy shop. They'll be like the Vectric files and probably the SVG with a quick note on the depths and such that I use. So if you want to play around with this, don't want to design it, go ahead ahead, grab those. Again, appreciate the support, but more importantly, I hopefully showed you how to design it yourself, and you'll be able to make it without having to spend your money. But if you want to support me and you want to get it done quick, always love that as well. I'm going to wrap this up here. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those down below. If you liked the video, hit that like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. I do a number of project videos around the workshop, a lot of focus on lasers and CNCs, also some 3D printing, but you never know what I'm going to get up to here. And a lot of times I like to throw some videos together and share that. So if you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and I greatly appreciate it. So thanks again for watching. If you've made it this far, you're a real trooper and I appreciate you as a supporter. We will be back out in the shop soon with another project or machine. But I hope in the meantime, you can get out into your workshop and make something too. We'll catch you next time.